Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about what we need to do as a community to make Rocket League the best esport it can be. And I think this weekend showed one of the biggest things that we can do is expand RLCS. The reason for expanding RLCS has four components to it. One, what every group wants. So that's the orgs, the players, fan base, and then Psyonix themselves. The second thing I'm going to be talking about, and I think this weekend really showed it, was that we need to expand, at least in the NA and EU regions, that they need to be 32 teams. So I'm going to be going over how this could look. I'm not saying that this is exactly how it's going to be. So let's talk about it from the org's perspective. Right now, you basically have to be a top 6 team to get consistent representation at RLCS. When orgs invest in teams, it is for one reason and one reason only: to grow their brand. If orgs know that there is a high likelihood that their team is not going to get consistent representation and airtime, it's a much riskier investment for them to invest in a team that's not a top 6 team. And that is why we only see big orgs really approaching that top 6, potentially top 10 teams. There's a lot of teams that are signed to organizations, but they aren't really invested in as players. Next, let's talk about it from the players' perspectives. Players, to get better, need to play better teams. And as of right now, there is no way to play a top 6 team if you are below that top 12 type team on a consistent basis. When you scrim or play against these top level teams, you get experience that you can't get anywhere else. When we gatekeep so hard with the way quals are done, it makes it nearly impossible for teams to get that experience and raise the overall level of competition. And then I think it's pretty obvious why Psyonix would want Rocket League esports to grow. If the esports growing, then they themselves as a company is growing. So let's talk about a potential new format for RLCS. And I'm going to propose a league type system per season. There would be 2 24-week seasons each year. The top 16 teams from the previous season would automatically qualify, and the bottom 16 teams would have to go through open quals. And I think that could be split up into 2 events, and the top 8 from each event get into this season. Now, the first 2 weeks would be double elim into Swiss format, very similar to how we have it. And the top 8 teams would advance from the first one, and then the top 8 teams from the next one would advance. So that way teams have 2 chances to qualify to get into this longer season. Now, week 3, there would be a break. And the reason I put a break in here, so teams have a chance to handle business end things like being assigned to an org. Weeks 4 through 10 would be a best of 7 series, kind of scheduled out very similar to the NFL. Week 11 would be a mid-season tournament with the top 16. Seedings determined by win-loss ratio, then game differential if there's ties, then goal differential if there's even more ties. Weeks 12 through 18 would be the second half of that season. Week 19 would then be a postseason regional tournament for the top 16. Then there would be a week off for everybody who's making it to prep for the major. Week 21 would be international major. Then there would be a holiday break, and then weeks 24 through 46 would be basically just a repeat of what we just happened. Then week 48 through 50 would be Worlds, and then 51 through 52 would be preseason. So why am I proposing so much Rocket League? This is a model that would heavily favor the organizations and make Rocket League attractive to the organizations. If they're getting 48 weeks out of the year, their players, their team, their brand being represented, it would make it highly attractive. for orgs to invest in Rocket League. And that's what we truly need, is investment from orgs into Rocket League and into growing Rocket League. But to do that, we need to give them the airtime and the consistency of airtime for that to be worth it for them. So I realize that could be a little long. So possibly a shorter season could be an answer to that. Another idea I have that would be a shorter season would be to split up the teams into 4 groups of 8. And either every 2 weeks or every week, they have 4 separate tournaments that are single elimination with tiebreakers for every seeding. This way, each team is playing 3 games. Secondly, we would use this seeding from the tournament results to then mix up the groups for next week. We would take 6 teams from each group and spread them out into the other 3 groups. This way, we're getting fresh matchups every week, and all we're doing is just swapping the number 1 seed in one group for the number 1 seed in another group, and all the way down the line. And we would do this in such a way that would spread them out across all the groups, so we get totally new groups every single week. Each week, you would also be competing for points to go towards the major, not just the seeding for the following tournament. At the end of the season, the top 16 teams based on points would automatically qualify for next season, and then we would repeat by having 2 open qualifiers in which the top 8 teams went from each qualifier. So this is what I think needs to happen for RLCS and Rocket League to grow as an esport. So to recap, for more orgs to be more invested in Rocket League, we need to give them more viewership of their brand more consistently. For players, we need them to be competing against higher quality teams so they can then go back and learn from them and elevate the overall level of play, and it not be such a disparity between the top teams and the bubble scene. And for the fans, we just need more fun matchups. We're kind of getting tired of the same 6 to 8 teams playing every regional. And I think that was the reason there was so much hype around Accru, not just because they were a good team, but because they were a bubble team, defying people's expectations. But if you have been in the bubble scene for the past 2 years and you've been following it, you already knew that these teams were good enough to compete at the highest level. They just finally got the chance to show it. And there's several other teams that are right there at the same level that deserve the same opportunity. None of this is to say that this is absolutely the way it has to be done. This is just my ideas, trying to think from the perspectives of every party involved on how we could grow Rocket League. Let's have this conversation as a community. And by a community, that includes you, Psyonix. We need you to have this conversation with us.